There are very few television shows these days that genuinely feel like an event every single year, but Invincible has absolutely become one of them. Season 4 continues that trend beautifully, delivering another emotionally devastating, action-packed, deeply character-driven chapter that once again proves why this series has become one of the best superhero shows currently on television. At this point, the show almost feels untouchable from a storytelling perspective. Every season somehow raises the stakes while still remaining incredibly personal and grounded through its characters. What makes the series so effective is that it constantly balances brutal spectacle with genuine emotional depth. One minute you're watching cosmic warfare and horrifying violence, and the next you're witnessing incredible intimate conversations between family members dealing with trauma, guilt, responsibility, and identity. And honestly, the balance is why the show works so well. Even now, 4 seasons in, the series still manages to surprise audiences with its scale, emotional maturity, and willingness to push characters into darker territories. The show doesn't simply rely on shocking violence anymore, although it certainly still delivers plenty of that. It now leans heavily into the emotional consequences of everything that has happened since season 1. And for me personally, this is another phenomenal season of television. The 4th season of Invincible was once again created by comic book writer Robert Kirkman based on his original comic book series of the same name. The season was produced by Amazon MGM Studios in association with Skybound Animation, Skybound North, Point Grey Pictures, and Wind's Sun Sky Entertainment. The creative team behind the series has clearly always had a long-term plan in place. In fact, Kirkman himself previously revealed that the rough outline for the adaptation could span around 8 seasons, allowing the show to fully adapt the larger Viltrumite mythology and wider comic book arcs. That ambition has become incredibly obvious in season 4. This season marks a significant tonal and narrative shift for the show. While previous seasons focused primarily on Mark Grayson's origin story and the fallout of Omni-Man's betrayal, season 4 begins pushing the series towards its true endgame, the larger Viltrumite conflict and the impending war that threatens the entire galaxy. The season specifically deals with the aftermath of the devastating Invincible War and Mark's brutal fight with conquest at the end of season 3. The world is still recovering physically and emotionally, while Mark himself is becoming increasingly burdened by the responsibility placed upon him. At the same time, Nolan Grayson, Omni-Man himself, returns to Earth, bringing with him a deeper exploration of Viltrumite society, history, and ideology. The series finally begins diving into politics and the ruthlessness of the Viltrum Empire in ways many fans of the comic book have long been waiting for. And honestly, the scale of the series now feels enormous. What makes season 4 so compelling is that it constantly feels like a storm building in the distance. Every episode carries tension. Even the slower, quieter episodes feel important because you know something massive is coming. The writing is incredibly good at planting emotional seeds early on that eventually pay off in devastating ways later in the season. The central storyline focuses heavily on the coalition of planets and the looming Viltrumite war, with Mark, Nolan, and Oliver increasingly drawn into the conflict. But beneath the large-scale sci-fi war narrative lies something much more personal, the question of whether Mark can avoid becoming like his father. That's really what the show is about underneath all the violence and spectacle. Season 4 especially explores the inherited violence, generational trauma, and whether power inevitably corrupts those who wield it. It forces Mark to constantly confront the darker side of his Viltrumite heritage, while also questioning whether Nolan himself can truly change. And that's where the emotional strength of this series shines. The show doesn't simplify its characters into heroes and villains. Nolan remains terrifying, sympathetic, regretful, and dangerous all at the same time. Mark himself is slowly becoming harder, more aggressive, and more emotionally exhausted after everything he's experienced. The writing trusts the audience enough to let these characters exist in morally complicated spaces, and it works brilliantly. Now, one criticism that continues to follow the show is the animation quality, and to be fair, some of those criticisms are understandable. This is not Disney-level animation. It's not visually perfect. There are definitely moments where the series uses shortcuts or cost-saving techniques. Characters occasionally speak off screen to avoid complex facial animations. Certain sequences rely on still frames or limited movement, and some scenes clearly prioritize efficiency over visual spectacle. Critics and fans alike have pointed out this repeatedly, particularly in season 4. But honestly, for me, the animation debate has never really mattered as much as it does for some viewers, because what Invincible lacks in polished animation, it more than makes up for in storytelling, pacing, emotional investment, and voice performances. And when the big moments arrive, especially the major fight sequences, the show still delivers visually where it matters most. The action remains brutal, visceral, shocking, and impactful in ways few superhero shows manage to ever achieve. More importantly, the emotional writing carries the series through its visual shortcomings. Now, if there's one aspect of the show that simply cannot be criticized, it's the voice acting. The cast is absolutely phenomenal. Steven Yeun continues to deliver extraordinary work here as Mark Grayson, Invincible. His performance is emotional, vulnerable, intense, and incredibly human. You genuinely feel Mark's exhaustion, guilt, fear, anger, and determination throughout the season. He's the emotional backbone of the entire series. Once again, Sandra Oh remains excellent here as Debbie Grayson, grounding the show emotionally. And then, of course, there's the wonderful J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man. Honestly, his performance is legendary at this point. Simmons somehow manages to make Nolan terrifying and emotionally tragic simultaneously, even during quieter scenes. His voice carries this immense presence and authority, and that perfectly suits the character. The supporting cast is equally fantastic. Gillian Jacobs here as Atom Eve brings a rawness to her character, while Walton Goggins as Cecil Stedman is always superb. Not to mention the lighter, funnier side that Seth Rogen brings to his character, Alan the Alien. And of course, we also have the wonderful Jeffrey Dean Morgan returning as Conquest. And I'd be remiss to not mention the great Peter Cullen returning here as Thaddeus. His voice and gravitas just adds so much weight to the show. But honestly, the biggest addition to the season is unquestionably Thragg. Comic book fans have been waiting years to see this character properly adapted, and Season 4 finally delivers. Lee Pace voices the Grand Regent Thragg, the ruler of the Viltrumite Empire, and arguably the series' ultimate antagonist. And honestly, the casting is perfect. Pace brings an incredible sense of calm authority, menace, intelligence, and power to the role. Thragg doesn't need to scream or overact to feel terrifying. His presence alone commands attention. Robert Kirkman himself explained that the production wanted someone capable of conveying dominance, restraint, and enormous scale for the character, and Lee Pace absolutely delivers that. Now, one episode that divided some audiences was episode 4, where Mark travels to Hell and teams up with Damien Darkblood, voiced by the wonderful Clancy Brown, to help Satan, voiced here by the legendary Bruce Campbell. The storyline was created specifically for the show rather than adapted directly from the comics, and yes, it definitely feels different from the rest of the season. Some fans dislike how disconnected it felt from the main Viltrumite storyline, and it also became the lowest rated episode of the series. But personally, I didn't mind it at all. In fact, I actually appreciated how bizarre and experimental it was, and it gives the show a completely different atmosphere and added another layer to the universe. Plus, the Slayer track Raining Blood playing during the climatic battle sequence was absolutely insane in the best possible way. Another underrated aspect of the show is the soundtrack. Composer John Pansino once again delivers an emotional and cinematic score that perfectly complements the show's scale and emotional tone. The series also continues its tradition of using licensed music incredibly well, from emotional opening montages to brutal action sequences. Soundtracked by heavy metal, the music choices consistently elevate the material rather than distract from it. This season maintained a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes during its first week of release, continuing the show's incredible streak of critical success. But for me, at the end of the day, Invincible Season 4 continues everything that makes this series exceptional. No, the animation is not perfect, but the storytelling is outstanding. The voice acting is phenomenal, the emotional weight is incredible, and the world building is massive. The season successfully transitions the show into a much larger cosmic conflict, while still maintaining the deeply personal emotional core that made the audiences care in the first place. Every episode feels meaningful, every emotional moment lands, every major conflict carries genuine stakes, and perhaps most importantly, the show continues evolving rather than repeating itself. It feels darker now, bigger, more mature, more emotionally devastating. And with Thragg finally entering the picture, it genuinely feels like the series is only just beginning to reveal its true scale. Invincible Season 4 gets a 9.5 out of 10. So what did you think of Invincible Season 4? Please let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.